Magyanatimirandasya Gyanam Janachalakaya Chakshunamilitam Gyanatashmi Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Anarapitacharim Chirat Karunayavatirana Kalahu Samarpaitamunnatajvalarasan Subhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipita Sada Hridaye Kandaresh Purato Vasachinandana Janalambita Bujjo Kanakavadatam Sankirtanaika Pitero Kamalaya Taksha Vishwambaro Dvyavaro Jugadharma Palu Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karuna Avataro He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kantara Kanta Namostute Radhe Vrindavan Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusati Devi Pranamami Haripriye Bhaktya Bhinaya Aparadha Lakshay Hiptascha Kamaditarangamadhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Shri Satinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Ki Jai Shri Shri Gaurnita Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Ki Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sannyasa-lila Sriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai Gaur Pramanand Hari Bol. So Dandavat to all of you, welcome. Thanks so much for joining again, and those who are coming today first time to this series of meetings we're having. Again, thank you so much Dina Dayal and Anupam family for receiving us and for your time. As I always like to say, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I am time personified. So if you are giving me your time, you are giving me Krishna. So I'm already indebted to you. So whatever I may try to say from now onward is just my attempt to reciprocate. You're giving me Krishna. Maybe you thought you were coming for me to give you Krishna, and you didn't know you're already giving me Krishna by giving me your time and attention and presence. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for engaging in this dialogue. As we were talking yesterday, today I had a very nice conversation. We did a podcast with Srila Krishna Kshetra Maharaj, mostly on the topic of dialogue. And yeah, we were concluding how the whole of reality is dialogue. Because I was mentioning to him, well, everything is connected with Krishna in the center. Whatever exists is interconnected with Krishna in the center. So we all share a commonality, a relationality with Krishna in the center. So in itself, that he said that gives us an ontological, metaphysical foundation for the principle that reality is an ongoing dialogue. We can speak about reality as a conversation, a dialogue, because everything exists in connection to everything else with a common center. So we could think of reality, existence, as a conversation, as a dialogue. There's always someone else that I'm trying to talk to and that's trying to talk to me. I always recall Viktor Frankl's statement in Man's Search for Meaning. He will say, don't ask so much, what do I expect from reality, but what reality expects from you. Like implying there's the voice of reality, we will say the voice of God. It's also asking, inviting you to participate. Reality is a participatory project. So anyhow, we are in that now. That's my point. We are in dialogue. Although it seems I'm the guy with the camera and the computer and opening his mouth, but actually it's dialogue. Even if you are not talking, you are present, you are looking, you are feeling, and eventually also we will invite for you to share your thoughts. So it's dialogue and conversation all the way through. So thanks for that to begin with. So today, throughout these days, for those who have not been yesterday, we were thinking, Anupam extended that invitation to share some reflection about some of the main themes of my second book called Radical Personalism, which, as I mentioned yesterday, is my attempt to, I don't know if to say reframe Gaudiya Vaishnavism. I don't want to sound too ambitious. Like here I am reframing Gaudiya Vaishnavism, but just, how to say, trying to explain Gaudiya Vaishnavism to myself in a way that makes sense to me. Let's put it that simple. And that makes the tradition relevant, relatable, and gives me hope to engage in its practice and make it real and realistic, and so on and so forth. So I've tried to think about that and reframe some ways in we used to think and speak about our tradition, because just providing a new framework in itself creates a new experience. That's very important. Just reframing something offers the opportunity to re-experience that from another perspective. So I think that that's the duty of every single, not only generation, but every single member of the tradition to do a particular reframing of the tradition without betraying the tradition, but just reframing it in a way that remains relevant, relatable, deep, experiential. And I can find, so to say, my own version of Krishna consciousness. Again, I'm not saying like I'm creating my own thing, but Krishna consciousness, as we say yesterday, is my own unique relationship with Krishna. So that's unique to me, unique to you. It's not the same for in any one of us. So at the end of the day, Krishna consciousness has to be unique in each one of us, our own experience, our own version, if you want to use that, if I dare to use that word. And as I mentioned in my book, sometimes I've heard devotees saying, okay, I feel stagnant in Krishna consciousness. Maybe Bhakti doesn't work. No? Maybe maybe Gaudiya Vaishnavism became obsolete. No? And for me, the answer to that immediately will be, no, probably the version of Gaudiya Vaishnavism that you were relating to became obsolete. No? And you need to rediscover your own tradition over and over again. And that's how we can frame progress, rediscovering the tradition, rediscovering your connection to Krishna, rediscovering who we are in relationship with God, dying to an old version and being reborn to a new version, dying again, born again, dead again, born again. That's how progress can be reframed, as a series of deaths and rebirths. We have the born again Christians, we can speak born again Gaudiyas on a daily basis. I'm dying to live, as Hegel will put it. So anyhow, that's a few things that I was sharing yesterday. And so we are sharing some of the main themes of radical personalism, which again, for me, is not a book. It's just another way of talking about Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Krishna consciousness, in a radically personal way. Our tradition is very personal. We're invited to be radically personal, going to the root of what it means to be a person, of what it means that Krishna is a person, that Krishna is not only a person, but the supreme personality of Godhead, and which is our supreme personality in connection to his supreme personality, and how to attain that, and so on and so forth. So today and throughout these days, we will be touching upon some of the main themes. Today I was thinking, today we are celebrating the Sannyasa-lila of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So I'd like, with your permission, or as I like to say, with or without your permission, I'd like to talk a little bit about that. And while talking about that, trying to talk about the notion of renunciation and how renunciation sometimes is misunderstood in our tradition, and how we can embrace a healthy notion of renunciation in a way that is favorable for bhakti, for devotion, for love. So I say with or without your permission, but nonetheless, I'm asking your blessings. Can I talk about that?
Without my blessings.
Yes, okay. That's a form of blessing also, so thank you. So first of all, I'd like to share a few words on Mahaprabhu's Sannyasa-lila, and then concentrate on the notion of renunciation itself. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has this song called Prabhata Giti, sometimes called Kali Kukura. Maybe you've heard about it. And then he speaks about Mahaprabhu's Grihastha Lila and Mahaprabhu's Sannyas Lila. So he says, Grihi Jana Sikshaka Nyashi Kula Nayaka. So he says, Mahaprabhu, in his as a Grihastha, he was an exemplar Grihastha. And then Nyashi Kula Nayaka, he uses a very interesting expression. He says he was the hero, the Nayaka, hero among sannyasis, which generally Nayaka in Gaudiya Vaishnava language is more used for a romantic hero. Krishna is a Nayaka, Sri Radha is Nayika. So it's interesting that he applies that to Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi, right? A romantic hero, but a sannyasi at the same time. No? But of course, we will get there, how the sannyas of Mahaprabhu has, in one sense, a lot to do with romanticism, but not the romanticism we may think, but the ultimate experience of Radha's romantic love for Krishna, how his Sannyasa-lila also facilitates that. But before reaching those depths, we know that Mahaprabhu's descending on this world has a primary purpose, has a secondary purpose. Secondary purpose generally is more connected to establishing the Yuga Dharma, spreading the teachings of Bhakti. And the primary purpose is to taste the inner world of Srimati Radharani, let's put it that way, taste the glories of her love. Where to put it? Okay. I'll try to remain aware that there's a glass there. So the primary purpose is tasting the glory of the love of Sri Radha, tasting the beauty that she perceives in him and the joy that she perceives while witnessing Krishna's beauty. But first of all, he came to spread the teaching, spread the Yuga Dharma as an acharya. Mahaprabhu is Krishna as acharya. In one sense, Krishna in his Braja Lila is not that much of an acharya. In one sense, he misbehaves a lot. Let's put it that way. From a certain perspective, of course. From another perspective, his behavior is absolutely pure and spotless. But from a certain perspective, we could say, well, he's lying, cheating, stealing, womanizing in the context of Lila. So Mahaprabhu is coming as an acharya in every sense of the term. Although his inner experience is all about the quote-unquote misbehavior of Braja Lila, the romantic rendezvous between Radha and Krishna. So Mahaprabhu comes to this world and eventually accepts sannyas. And his sannyas lila sometimes is called Acharya Lila. Acharya Lila, where Bhagavan acts an acharya, he teaches by example. And the Acharya Lila is the longest section, at least in the Caitanya Charitamrita of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. The Madhya Lila is the Acharya Lila. So it's almost half of the book, or more even. So somehow the Sannyas Lila of Mahaprabhu, in one sense, is an Aishwarya Lila. He's showing the opulence of renunciation. So that Sannyas Lila may create some Aishwarya, but of course, Mahaprabhu is using the Aishwarya with the purpose of giving a teaching that takes us to Madhurya. So he uses this like powerful, majestic renunciation to caught the attention, so to say, of the public and lead them to the sweetness and intimacy of what's going on in Braj. What's going on in Navadvip, in the eternal Lila. That's a whole separate conversation. But mostly in our tradition, especially, I would say Bhaktivinoda Thakur that was one of his main contributions, was as the six Goswamis, they rediscovered the places of Leela of Krishna in Vrindavan and wrote books to highlight the glory of that Leela. Bhaktivinoda Thakur rediscovered the place of birth of Mahaprabhu in Navadvip and wrote so much about Mahaprabhu. And he highlighted the possibility of serving Sri Chaitanya in eternity, what we may call Nitya Navadvip. And in that spirit, Bhaktivinoda Thakur once is singing, no? And we have to understand his mood. No? He's saying, when he said, when Nimai Pandit will abandon his sannyas, no? And return to Navadvip, and return to execute Sankirtan at Srivas Pandit's house. I'm missing that Nimai. The Sannyasa-lila is a little bit like, it creates some distance. When he will become sannyas, grihastha again, go back home. When he will leave his sannyas. No. No. For some devotees, that will be like, how you dare to sing a song wishing a sannyasi to leave his sannyas, right? Right. But we have to understand that from, and this starts to speak about the role of sannyas. No, the relativity of the sannyas ashram. This is a sannyasi telling you that. So I can speak for that. No? 15 years of sannyas, I can say that. We will go into that in a few minutes more. No? But still, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is highlighting, in the eternal relationship with Mahaprabhu, my mood is not to relate with Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi. No, his sannyasi is more of a naimitika lila, let's call it that way, like temporary lila for a purpose of dissemination. But in eternity, Nityanavada, he will be with Vishnu Priya, Lakshmi Priya, Sachi Mata, all the Navadvip-vasis, every night going to Srivas Pandit, and all together meeting them in very much intimate connection. Right. Hari. That's it. No, that has to do with the Madhuri aspect of the Leela of Mahaprabhu, the intimate, the sweetness of that, where he resides eternally in Nitya Navadip as Nimai.
Sorry.
Why not?
Sorry for interrupting.
But now I'm not seeing Purushottam. You can
Yeah,
come, please. This glass will fall at any moment. So I'll put it here. Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Now, but it is said that to enter into that sweetness and intimacy of Nimai Pandit in Nitya Navadip, also we have first to go through the Aishvarya of his Sannyasa-lila. Like in the same way, Krishna, before showing the sweetness of his Rasa-lila with the gopis and other intimate lilas, he killed a few asuras, which is kind of the symptom of Aishvarya, killing demons. And then, okay, let's go to intimacy. Now, the first time Aishvarya, to also establish the proper understanding and foundation of what's that Madhurya about. Because the intimacy of the pastimes of Hari are not mundane intimacies, we know. In fact, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes the point in Raghavarma Chandrika that we need Aishvarya in order to experience Madhurya. No? I mean, the Madhurya Leelas of Krishna, Madhurya here I mean intimate and sweet, not necessarily the romantic Leelas only, but for experiencing that sweetness of intimacy, there has to be some foundation of Aishvarya. For example, we hear about Krishna being a baby, and it's very charming. But what's the difference between what makes that Leela, that childhood Leela, Kumar Leela, especially charming? In other words, what's the difference between the charm we feel when hearing that he is a boy, a baby, and any other baby? What's the difference? You tell me.
He's God. Yeah.
He's God, right? He's God, and despite that, he's a baby. So when you say he's God, means Aishvarya. You're bringing Aishvarya to the table, and because of that Aishvarya, you can have the experience of Madhurya. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes that point: the necessary of Aishvarya as a bedrock, as a foundation for the experience of intimacy and sweetness. So in the same way, the sannyas of Mahaprabhu shows this Aishvarya of renunciation, but that's not the goal in itself, but it's trying to convey us the sweetness and the intimacy of his lila. When he is no longer a sannyasi, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur will pray, no? When you will leave your sannyas ashram. There's a song of Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying that. That's not bantasi, as sometimes devotees say, no? That person who eats his own vomit, who took sannyas, rejected, and then we are talking about something else here, right? And that's why also for those who have received Diksha or second initiation, there's this Gaur Gayatri, and the first name of Mahaprabhu there is Caitanya. And then comes Gaur, Vishvambar Gaur. First, Chaitanya, his name as a sannyasi. Go through the Eshvar of his sannyas, and then we can experience the intimacy of him in the lila beyond sannyas. That's also why probably when we chant Panchatattva mantra, the name that comes for Mahaprabhu is his sannyas name, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. And someone say, but why? In eternity he won't be called Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And of course there are many ways to reply to that. One will be, even if that's not the case, it's so crucial for us to go through his Acharya-lila, Sannyasa-lila, that we invoke that name in our sadhana here and now. But also something important that we will say is that you have water there? I have water here.
No,
Yeah,
it's
no
okay.
problem. So what's the meaning of Krishna Chaitanya, which is the name that Mahaprabhu received when receiving sannyas? A very unique name, by the way. Not the usual name that you generally receive from a guru like Kesha Bharati, who, even more particularly, came from a Shankar Sampradaya. That's a whole other conversation. At least overtly, he was an Advaitin. So Sri Krishna Chaitanya, what does it mean Krishna Chaitanya in Srila Prabhupada's language?
Krishna consciousness.
Krishna consciousness. We use the expression often Krishna consciousness, the Krishna consciousness movement. Chaitanya means consciousness. So Krishna Chaitanya means Krishna. That was the name that Mahaprabhu received as a sannyas. Your sannyasi name is Krishna consciousness. That was his name. And Prabhupada felt inspired to name his movement after Mahaprabhu's sannyas name, Krishna consciousness. And of course, my point with this is, remember, I was saying why we call Krishna Chaitanya in Panchatattva mantra or even Gayatri mantra, if in eternity he won't be the sannyasi. But Krishna consciousness, it's another way of referring to Radharani also, because who is the ultimate example of Krishna consciousness? It's her. So this is what all Gaur Lila is ultimately about. Mahaprabhu is Krishna trying to go deeper into his experience of Sri Radha. So his sannyas is, again, for the purpose of disseminating the teaching, but at the same time it has another reasons. And that's why sometimes some acharyas have referred to his sannyasi as, even using words that may sound shocking. For example, Prabodhananda Saraswati in his Chaitanya Chandramrita, he refers to Mahaprabhu as sannyas kapatam. Kapatam means like cheater. So basically it's like a cheating sannyasi. Mahaprabhu is a cheating sannyasi. In which sense, of course, we won't want to make aparat toward the Sannyasa-lila of Mahaprabhu. But implying it, yeah, because he accepted sannyas, but ultimately he's way beyond that. He went above all what sannyas is about. He used that externally for something, but internally he was for something else. And there are different reasons. Again, Mahaprabhu externally accepted sannyas to, we will say, even to be taken seriously in the eyes of society. At that time, if you appear with sannyas saffron clothes, you will be taken more seriously. And even some acharyas will have said he took sannyas from a Sankarite sampradaya, impersonal sampradaya, because they were taken even more seriously. So he didn't have any problem with receiving the order from an impersonal line, as long as that fulfilled the purpose of delivering the teaching. Of course, personalities like Murari Gupta and others will say in their biographies, before receiving the mantra from Kesha Bharati, the sannyas mantra, Mahaprabhu came to Kesha Bharati and told him, I had a dream last night, and in the dream you gave me a mantra. And the mantra was Tattvamasi, which is somehow different from the mantra that is given nowadays in our particular line when you receive sannyas. But Tattvamasi is a famous, one of the main Mahavakyas of Shankara, of the main great statements for Advaita Vedanta, which is you are that, at least how they interpret that, meaning you are Brahman. So Mahaprabhu comes to Kesha Bharati and say, I had a dream last night and you were giving me this mantra. And he recites the mantra Kesha Bharati, but he recites the mantra with the Gaudiya Vaishnava conception, which is not you are that, but you are his. So he says Tattvamasi. Start that mantra, and Kesha Bharati receives the mantra from Mahaprabhu, but with that new perspective, and becomes somehow initiated by Mahaprabhu in the Vaishnava conception of the mantra. So Mahaprabhu says, this is the mantra. Is that correct? And he says, yes. But I never thought of that mantra in that way. Now I'm receiving from you this perspective of Tattvamasi, and then he gives back the mantra to Mahaprabhu with being transformed to the Gaudiya conception. So in that sense, we could say strictly Mahaprabhu was not initiated by an Advaiting, right? But outward, externally, he received that form, that initiation, again, with some relative purpose of spreading the teaching. But internally also, we will say the sannyas of Mahaprabhu, the Sannyasa-lila of Mahaprabhu is not only tied to the spreading of the teaching, which is the secondary purpose, it's also tied to the primary purpose of his descent, which is, again, to taste Radha Bhav. So why to connect these two? There are many ways, and different Vaishnavas have said many things. I will just be brief because this is just the introduction to my main theme today. But we will say basically that, of course, Gaur Lila is eternal, but somehow is explained as a natural, like a consequence of Krishna Lila, as a way of connecting the two, although it's eternal. And the connection will be that Krishna is witnessing the degree of love of his devotees, the Brajavasi in particular, Sri Radha even more in particular, and he feels, okay, they are loving me in such a way, they are renouncing everything for me, for my sake. They're so exclusive in their love for me, but I'm not that exclusive in reciprocating with them because I have so many devotees, so I have to reciprocate to all of them, while they are only giving themselves to me and nobody else. No? So I'm more like the Bhagavad Gita will say, Vyabhyasya atmika buddhi ekiha kurunandana bahu saka hinantascha buddhaiva vyavasayinam. Krishna is more bahu saka. No, he's multi-branched. He has to reciprocate with every devotee in every rasa, in every department, and the gopis are like ekiha, they're like only Krishna. No, not even their husband, their so-called whatever, husband and family, Krishna. So Krishna feels, they are giving themselves so much, renouncing everything for me. So I will appear as a sadhu and I will renounce everything for them, basically. He says that somehow in the Bhagavatam, Napariham nirabadya sanjayam susadu kritam vibudaya sapiva jamava jandurjara geha shrinkala sambrishyatatva pratyatva sadhana. It's like the zenith of the Rasa Panchadhyaya, the 5 chapters on the Rasa-lila, where Krishna reappears amidst the gopis after the Gopi Gita, the gopis singing in separation, longing for Krishna after he disappeared from the Rasa-lila. And Krishna says, your love for me is of such a profundity and depth and intensity, I cannot repay your love back. So here we find Krishna Devat and contradicting himself in relation to what he said in the Bhagavad Gita. What did he say in the Bhagavad Gita? Once you approach me, I reciprocate accordingly. Now in the Bhagavatam, he's telling the gopis, I cannot reciprocate accordingly. Forget that verse of the Bhagavad. That's not for you. That's for everyone else. For you, I'm eternally indebted. I cannot reciprocate because you have so much love for me. I have acquired such a debt that I not only cannot repay back the debt, the debt has become so big, I don't know how much is the debt. You have given me so much love that even I don't know how much there is the debt. It's not, I know, but I cannot pay it. I don't know how much is the debt. What to speak of paying back? I'm an eternal debtor in connection to your love. May your love be its own reward. That's the ultimate conclusion of the Vedanta. Love is its own reward. For us, for Krishna including God. That's why love is the goal of life for us. Love is the goal of life for God. Of course, Krishna already has love, but love is of such a nature that you can always attain a deeper experience of love. So Krishna is always running after that, like a thirsty beggar. We were talking the other day on Bhaman Dwadasi about that. Krishna appears as a beggar, like Bhaman did. And one interpretation will be, he's a beggar of love. God is a beggar of love, always looking for more, deeper experience. So anyhow, in that verse of the Bhagavatam, Mahaprabhu is saying, what? I cannot repay back your love. Your love is its own reward. But once every day of Brahma, I will come as a sadhu and will try to repay back. I will try to do something about it. So that verse, according to Sanatana Goswami, is announcing the Gaur Lila. Mahaprabhu coming to try to repay back as a sadhu. And he will say as a sannyasi. So as the gopis are renouncing everything, leaving everything behind for Krishna, Krishna as Mahaprabhu is renouncing everything. Mahaprabhu is Krishna, but he's renouncing his peacock feather, he's renouncing his flute, he's renouncing so many things that characterize Krishna. He's renouncing all of them for trying to reciprocate to the gopis' renunciation in love, so to say. He's renouncing his Tribanga Lalita, his crooked, curved, form curved in three parts. Mahaprabhu generally appears very straight. Krishna is the crooked one here. He's renouncing all that. And on top of that, when he becomes sannyas, because still as Mahaprabhu, as Nimai, as a grihasta, he had long, beautiful, curly hair, ankle bells, pitambara, yellow cloth. As a sannyas, he's renouncing all of that as well. Shaving his head, as we know, that's a very tragic part of the Sannyasa-lila. It's described in Shastra, when everyone witnesses the shaving of Nimai's beautiful curly hair. He's renouncing his yellow cloth, he's renouncing his ankle bells, and he's becoming Sri Krishna Caitanya, trying to pay back to the extreme renunciation of the gopis for him in Krishna Lila. So this is another way of connecting the Sannyasa-lila of Mahaprabhu to the inner purpose of the Gaur avatar, reciprocating, not only tasting the love of Radha and the gopis, but trying to reciprocate that somehow, trying to make devotees for them, trying to sing their glories. So that's a brief introduction to the Sannyasa-lila of Mahaprabhu. But also today I want to share a few words about renunciation in itself, because again, Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas. We have sannyas in our Gaudiya Sampradaya, following the footsteps of Mahaprabhu. There are verses in the Bhagavatam that support the Vaishnava sannyas conception. But also I will say that sometimes the notion of sannyas or the notion of renunciation in a general way has become a little bit distorted in our appreciation of it, and we ended up like over appreciating the renunciation in itself as a goal to attain, so to say, to the point that we became all about renunciation, and in the name of renunciation we ended up becoming indifferent, we ended up becoming dysfunctional, we ended up becoming disengaged with so many things. We ended up practicing what I call disembodied spirituality, because it's all about renunciation. We ended up, not always, but some cases, orienting our practice in a negative way, thinking more about what do I have to reject instead of what do I have to accept. Sometimes we may have oriented our practice in starting with a no, than with a yes. Like sometimes I joke with devotees and I say, well, if I ask you, what's your practice all about? And some devotees may say, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex. And it's like, okay, the main thing of your practice are 4 things you don't do. I mean, I'm not saying every devotee replies in that way, of course, but sometimes we think like that. No? The main thing of my practice is these 4 don'ts. And I would say that's not healthy to even conceive even those 4 in terms of in negative terms. Of course, we can express that in that way, but we have to be careful of finding the positive expression of them. Like I give an example in my book, also in Radical Personalism. For example, you say no meat eating. That's one principle. And with all respect, I will say, no, that's not the principle. That's an expression, a symptom of the actual principle. These 4 pillars that are mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Satyam, Socham, Tapas, and Ahimsa. Thank you. Yeah, there comes a more positive one. So the actual principle is not no meat eating. The actual principle is Ahimsa. No, and of course, non-violence, which means it's not limited to your diet, but to how you relate to everything and everyone. And even if we say non-violence, still I'm speaking in negative terms, right? Non-violence. So what will be the positive expression of being non-violent?
Having love for all living entities.
Okay. Yes. So in this line, right? Love, compassion, kindness, care for everyone. And also, if we can extend that a little bit more, if you allow me, to say the principle is not so much about being compassionate, but being as loving as you can. Because you can also say, okay, I will be compassionate. But are you being as compassionate as you can? That's the actual regulative principle. Be as loving as you can. That's very different from saying no meat eating. Right? And that's more difficult to follow. So if we extend each of these 4 principles to this, the ultimate expression, I don't want to make anyone feel discouraged, but probably we are breaking those 4 regs on a daily basis. But that's humbling, and that gives us a broader and deeper perspective of what all those things are about. Because if not, we may easily feel entitled that I'm doing that, I'm following that. So, so now what? So now you have to go deeper into those very same things. So, but I was giving this an example of how we can conceive our practice in negative terms. Know this, know this. So, for example, sannyas. Sannyas is not Rupa Goswami Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He gives these 64 angas of bhakti, these 64 expressions of devotional service. In any of them, you will find the word sannyas. Okay? In any of them, he's saying, become a renunciant, monasticism, reject everything. That's nowhere there. So I'm not saying sannyas is not bona fide. I'm just saying that's not considered as the main thing or as an actual engagement of bhakti, but that can be like a byproduct, which, okay, it's okay with that. Bhagavatam say what? Vasudev Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayate Subairagyam Ginam Chayadahaitakam. By properly engaging in bhakti, you develop vairagya or detachment. So detachment or renunciation comes as a byproduct of loving God, not the other way around. It's not the more detached I am, the more I will love Krishna. On the contrary, Rupa Goswami says, if you insist so much on renunciation for its own sake, you risk making your heart harder like a rock. Because you start to think in terms of rejecting. You conflate transcending with rejecting. Right? Sometimes we speak about transcendence. We have to be we consider transcending things means leaving aside, giving up, rejecting. I like to think of transcending as integrating. I don't need to reject anything. I just need to find the purpose of everything in connection to Krishna. We were sharing that yesterday with some of the devotees. Last year, I had the chance. I met Radhanath Maharaj in Alachua. I gave him a copy of the book, and we ended. I thought, okay, we'll talk 5 minutes. I gave the book. I don't want to take his time, but he said, "Wait, Maharaj, sit down and tell me about your life story." So we ended up talking 4 hours. There were a few things to share. He has his own life story, and we were like sharing notes and comparing notes and very similar. But so anyway, it was a nice conversation. And among many things, one point that came was this situation when once one devotee approached Srila Prabhupada, we were sharing last night, and told Srila Prabhupada, a disciple of him, Prabhupada, for your sake, I'm willing to reject everything. A pretty much negative orientation, right? I love you so much that I will reject everything for you. And Prabhupada say the only thing you need to reject is the idea that you have to reject anything. That's the only thing to reject. The idea of rejecting. Reject that one. Now there's nothing to reject. Confirmed. No. There's everything to accept in Krishna consciousness. That's the power of Bhakti. That's Yukta Vairagyam. That's a healthy renunciation that Rupa Goswami describes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Yukta Vairagya. Anashaktasya visayam yathartam upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam ujjate. Healthy renunciation is to engage everything in connection to Krishna. Interestingly. To renounce from a sober, healthy, balanced way is to see everything in connection to God and engage it in that way. In other words, you need to renounce the type of vision that through which you don't see things in connection to Krishna. That's what we need to reject. Seeing things disconnected from God. You have to renounce that. Apart from that, that's it. Everything else, you have to engage it. That's real renunciation, Rupa Goswami says. So that's why Mahaprabhu himself, although he accepted sannyas, and he outwardly was a sannyasi, at the same time, he tried to make the point, I'm a sannyasi on some relative level, accepted this order for all the reasons we talked, but on a more substantial level, sannyas and renunciation is still like anupadi, no? Like a, how to call anupadi, like a limiting adjunct. Maybe it's too scholarly to say that. Like a temporary designation. No? I'm a sannyasi. I have to take care of that, of over-identifying like myself as a sannyasi, as we were saying yesterday. In our tradition, our ultimate goal of life to serve in, let's see, Golok Vrindavan, nobody will be a sannyasi there, right? So now I'm a sannyasi, but I have to be careful of not being too attached to being a sannyasi, because that will get in the way of reaching my ultimate aspiration. So probably that's why Mahaprabhu said, though he was a sannyasi, said, Naham vipro na chana rapatirna pivaishrana sudro naham varnina chagrihapatir novanasto yatirba. He said, I'm not a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, yatirba, he said, and I'm not a sannyasi. But he was a sannyasi. But he said, I'm not a sannyasi. Imagine if I come to you today and you know me, Bhakti Padmanabha Swami, and say, actually, I'm not a sannyasi. And you're like, what's going on, Maharaj? Huh? Is everything okay with your vows? Are you planning to change ashram? Why you say you're not a sannyasi? I'm just following what Mahaprabhu said. I'm not a sannyasi. So if you are not a sannyasi, what are you? What do you are? What are you? So of course he says then what? Gopi Partu Pada Kamala Yor Dasa Dasa Nadas. Kintu Prodhyamnik. I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, the beloved, the gopis. So in comparison to that, to be a sannyasi is a anupadi. It's a temporary designation. So my point is we shouldn't place excessive emphasis, even as a sannyasi, of I'm a sannyasi and renunciation, because there's no need for that. Srimad Bhattan saying, Nani vinonatishrakto bhakti yoga siddhida. If you want to attain perfection in bhakti, you shouldn't be too attached and you shouldn't be too detached. Interesting. You should thread the middle path. Too attached, it means seeing everything with you in the center, seeing everything for your own selfish enjoyment. That's not healthy. But also rejecting everything, detaching from everything extremely, that's not healthy either, because you cannot engage things in service of Krishna. You cannot see things in connection to Krishna. So bhakti is not about selfish exploitation, but also bhakti is not about rejection or renunciation. Bhakti is about integrating everything in Krishna's service. And in that connection, that's one of the main points I want to touch today in relation to my book, is this point of learning to relate to the material world in a sacred way. I won't go too long. I will just mention a few words, but that's the longest chapter, last chapter of Radical Personalism. I call it Unearthing Heaven, like a play of words, unearthing heaven. How can I discover the spiritual world in matter? How to relate to material energy in a sacred way. Instead of rejecting or renouncing and saying this world is bad and let's leave this place as soon as possible, and making the whole spiritual project some form of evacuation plan for the afterlife, right? Some of us may do that. No? Spiritual life is all about leaving this planet as soon as possible. It's an evacuation plan for the afterlife.
Preppers. Right?
Yeah.
Doomsday preppers.
Yeah. But our tradition is not about mukti, as we were talking yesterday with Jitananda. Many times we don't realize that we overemphasize mukti, leaving this plane, transcending samsara, getting out of the... That's mukti, mukti, mukti. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, mukti is kaitava dharma. Mukti is cheating religion from our perspective. We want bhakti. And bhakti is its own reward. As we say before, bhakti is for its own sake. Bhaktya sanjatya bhaktya, says the Bhagavatam. Bhakti comes from bhakti. That's my first book. And bhakti goes to further bhakti. So the goal of bhakti is bhakti. The goal of bhakti is not transcending samsara. No, the goal of bhakti is so much bhakti that you no longer care for transcending samsara. That's what Mahaprabhu says in Sikshastakam, 4th verse. Mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhakti rahitakite. I don't care for returning here over and over again, as long as I can engage in haitaki bhakti. So that's a good one. So that's basically the trademark of our school. No? If we don't conceive bhakti from that place, that's an anartha, technically speaking. Anyabilasita sunyam jnana karma adya nabritam. Our understanding of bhakti has to be devoid of these evacuation plan theories. Bhakti is in itself so joyful, susukam kartum, Gita says, so joyful, that where do you want to go? Once someone asked Srila Bhakti Rakshak Siddhardev Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's beloved God brother, they asked him, Guru Maharaj, if I am starting bhakti in this lifetime, the person came with a calculator or something. If I'm starting bhakti in this lifetime, how many lifetimes do I need to reach Golok Vrindavan? So everything very like formulaic. Now Srila Maharaj was kind of like, why you're even asking that question? No? Like, he said many things in different cases. You want to come a little bit more because some other people may be coming. So, Martina, welcome. So he was asked this thing, right?
Okay, I'll just sit
You choose your seat. Everyone is telling you where to sit. You
go here, go
exercise your free will as you want. So they asked him that. No? So how many lifetimes? If I'm beginning now, tell me the formula. And he first said, but if bhakti is so nice, where do you want to go? Basically, why you are so in a rush to get anywhere? You follow my point? If bhakti is the goal, we are practicing sadhana bhakti. The goal of sadhana bhakti is bhava bhakti, which then turns into prema bhakti. But it's bhakti all the way through. So I'm practicing bhakti, so the goal is bhakti. Not like someone asked Srila Prabhupada once, what's the result of chanting Hare Krishna? And he was like, again, he said, well, the result of chanting Hare Krishna is that you will be able to chant more Hare Krishna. Not like implying we are already doing what we want to do for eternity. That's a very unique, important perspective. Try to think about your practice in that way. I'm already doing what I'm projecting to do forever. In one sense, I'm already in eternity. I'm not doing what I'm doing, chanting and worshiping and serving Lord. So eventually I can do something else. You follow my point? So in one sense, the goal already, I'm already in the goal. The goal, in one sense, I haven't attained the goal, but the goal attained me. Bhakti came to me and I'm already doing what I plan to do for eternity. and that's it. I don't need to arrive anywhere else. I just need to continue to arrive to where I already arrived. That's why Krishna says in the Bible, and whomever has that conception, Krishna says, Nami Bhakta Pranashati. My devotee never perishes. So we're quoting today, Niha Vikramanashasti. In this path of bhakti, there's no loss nor diminution. The Krishna is giving all this like support, like have confidence. You are, technically speaking, and maybe this sounds a little bit wild, you are already saved. So to say, we have to have that confidence. If I'm sincere, of course, if I'm not become a monster and attack bhakti and the bhaktas, I have to have deep faith and trust in Krishna's love and the power of bhakti, and I'm already on my way to the goal. That's it. And I have to practice with that confidence, not with the fear of a neurosis. Oh, maybe if I miss this next lifetime, Krishna will deprive me of my human form and I will be born as a crocodile in Florida or something. Maybe it's nearby Alachua. There's some association there. But Krishna is not that bad of a guy. He's a very interesting, merciful person. So this is a very important point. Like bhakti, again, bhakti is not about mukti. Bhakti is not about evacuation plan to the afterlife. Bhakti is just about further bhakti. So that's why Srila Samaraj said, when they asked him, so how many lifetimes will I attain whatever, Golok? I said, why you are concerned about that? He said, you're already doing bhakti. Bhakti is so joyful. So why you are so anxious to leave the situation you are in and go somewhere else? Or sometimes another way to reply to the question is, when will I attain that? When you stop asking the question. When you no longer care for that, you're already there. So there are different ways to say the same thing, right? But the point we are trying to establish is that today, for those who just came, we are celebrating Mahaprabhu's Sannyasa-lila, and we are talking about renunciation and how bhakti, in one sense, is not about renunciation. Renunciation is just a byproduct that naturally comes from bhakti. We only have to accept that renunciation, not renunciation producing bhakti, because bhakti is not produced by renunciation. Bhakti is produced by bhakti, and bhakti produced further bhakti. So that's a very interesting idea with the very word renunciation or detachment, vairagya. Vairagya sometimes is translated as detachment. But what's the meaning of vairagya if we go more to the etymological implications? Vairagya. Vai from Vaishishta, or a very special type of. And ragya means raga. And raga means attachment. So vairagya translates as a very special type of attachment. And we translate it as detachment. In other words, you can only have detachment when you have a special type of attachment. And that will express itself as some form of detachment. Krishna says in the Gita that you relish a higher taste and you renounce the lower taste naturally. It's like if I give you burnt bread for 3 years every day, you got accustomed. That's the thing you have for survival. But then I bring you a plate of pasta like the one Gorgovinda cooked today. And you taste the pasta, and now I tell you, so what's your next choice? I give you the options of both from now on. You don't give it a second thought. You become immediately detached from the burnt bread. There's no effort made in that. It's just like naturally, because you have had an experience of a higher taste. So param drishta nivartante. So this is the same. The renunciation in our tradition is just the consequence of the higher taste of bhakti by ragya, an attachment to something superior. And our goal again is not mukti. Our goal is bhakti, prem. And prem doesn't care for mukti, with all respect to mukti. Even in Bhava, he says, moksha laguta krit. One symptom of Bhava Bhakti is to experience the goal of renunciation, of liberation, of mukti, as insignificant. So we should be very careful of not conducting our bhakti practice with this mukti-oriented ideal. Again, in the beginning, as we talked today, Krishna welcomes everyone. You want mukti, you want bhukti, you want bhoga, you want tyaga, you want anything. No? The Bhagavatam says that akarma sarva kama va moksha kama dharade. Whether you have no desire at all, whether you have just the desire of mukti, or whether you have all the desires of the world, worship Bhagavan. Whatever background you have, you just worship him. So Krishna is welcoming everyone very generously. But when we are just refining our practice, we realize, yeah, there's nothing to renounce. The only thing I need to renounce is what's unfavorable for bhakti. No? Pratikulyasa varjanam. But I don't need to renounce this world. I don't need to renounce matter. Matter is not bad. No? This body is not bad. These senses are not bad. Family life is not bad. No? Each one of these points, I should give a separate class. Sorry, there's no time. But sometimes we have stigmatized all the things. No? Grihastha ashram inferior to saffron. Sorry, guys. And that's not true. That's not accurate. No? I mean, Srivas Pandit, he's a grihastha eternally. I mean, he's above all sannyasis put together, basically. Today I was reading some words of Srila Prabhupada about sannyasa. He said, if you engage mind, body, and words in Krishna's service, that's sannyasi. Doesn't matter cloth. No? And the cloth doesn't warranty that I'm engaging mind, body, and words in Krishna's service. So it's important that we have this idea of there's nothing to reject. There's nothing to, even detachment. For me, the word detachment doesn't mean rejection. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. Detachment, even if you want to conceive it in one way, is just take a distance from something, not out of indifference, but just to understand it in a better way and engage with that properly. Like sometimes I'm too close to something, I cannot see that something for what it is. So I need some zoom out. Oh, okay, now I can relate to that more with more sobriety. Like my hand here is too close, I cannot see it. I need some detachment, some distance. Oh, okay, and now I understand you. Your hand, I can here it's too much embedded in my own eye, so I need some distance. So detachment is more about healthy distance for proper re-engagement, so to say. So the same with this world. The world of matter is not bad. Material energy, Maya Shakti is a Vaishnavi in the service of Krishna. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions that. She's a Vaishnavi of the highest order, serving Krishna. So imagine if we say, oh, material energy is bad, or material energy is this or that, we may be committing Vaishnavi aparat. No, you don't want that. So the world of matter is not bad. Our approach to the world of matter may be bad. That's the badness of the equation. Matter in itself, Krishna says in Brahma Samhita, I'm in every atom. God is in every atom. How can I call this profane? No. Profane is my lenses through which, my filter through which I approach matter. But matter in itself is sacred. But sometimes when we don't get this right, and we think matter is ontologically damned, then comes the whole sequence. This bad is bad. I don't know. Family life is bad. Human form of life is bad. So we need to leave all that as soon as possible. But all that may come from this misperception of matter is bad. But matter is not bad. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says in this Vaishnava K song, if I relate to the object of the senses in Krishna consciousness, it sounds a little too much. He says, every object of the senses becomes non-different from Krishna himself. That's an interesting way to put it. They become identical with Madhav, he says, with God. Every object of the senses become God. No? Instead of saying this world of matter is horrible, leave this place as soon as possible, he's saying Krishna is waiting you in every atom. If we have the eyes to see. No? The Bhagavatam itself says the thing applied therapeutically say, cures a disease which was caused by that very same thing. So we could say, if I approach matter with a toxic vision, that creates a disease. But if I the way to cure the disease is to approach matter from a healthy place, like to redeem my relationship with matter, to make peace with matter. So there's so much to say in that connection, and I feel in general in the Gaudiya community at large, I'm not talking about any particular mission or institution, but at large in my experience, we need to make peace with matter, to integrate our relation, to be more embodied also in our practice. If not, we end up, as we say, practicing disembodied spirituality. And we are all about spirit and transcendence, but we are pretty dysfunctional on physical, emotional, psychological level. And we are talking about the highest theological peaks, but on a practical foundation, we need therapy probably. So that's so out of sync, and that's so distasteful. We were talking about the rasa-abhas today. For me, one of the worst rasa-abhas means like I'm here talking about manjari bhav and the highest stuff, and then I don't know how to relate to other human beings. And so it's like, or I'm evasive, or I'm bypassy, so to say. So again, we don't need to reject anything. Everything can be properly seen or engaged in Krishna consciousness, and matter is one of those Shaktis. We are one of those Shaktis, Tatastha Shakti. Matter is one of those Shaktis, Maya Shakti, all of them exist in service to the Shaktiman, to Bhagavan. So, so we may need just to change our angle of vision. Sounds simple, but I remember talking with some Christian friends that they will tell me the very first word of Jesus' ministry was metanoia. That means, basically, metanoia means change your angle, change your perspective. But interestingly, that word was translated as repent. Repent. And you find that word a lot in the gospel. Repent. But mostly every time you hear repent, actually he was saying, change your mind, change your mindset, change your eye. And basically for me, that's also the meaning of mantra, manastrayate, transcending the mind. It's another way of saying, change your mind, change your angle of vision. Mantra. It's not just repeating a sound and no change of mind, right? Because I can become just a catatonic repeater of a sound. And sometimes if I'm not doing from the right spirit, the more catatonically I repeat the mantra, the less I change my mind, the more I numb my inner world. So mantra has a lot all to do with some paradigm shift. No? I will quote this that I always quote almost in every class I give. When someone approached Srila Siddhar Maharaj and they asked him, Gurudev, what service can I do? Which service can I offer? And the devotee was very naively expecting his guru to tell him, wash the pots, clean the bathroom, peel some potatoes, distribute some books, whatever, something more simple, practical. Do this. And Srila Siddhar Maharaj replied, what service can I do? He said, change your angle of vision. That was a service. He gave service for eternity. Change your angle of vision. And the devotee was, okay. Because as we say, if I change my angle of vision, even I will stop asking for service, because with a new angle of vision, everything is service. Whatever I have in front of me are service opportunities. I no longer need to use the word problems. I can replace problems for service opportunities. So anyhow, the point is that we can relate to matter and engage matter in such a way that it becomes sacred. It becomes venerable. 2 days ago, oh yes, not yesterday. Yesterday, and we didn't go into that direction, sorry for that. But yesterday we were also celebrating the disappearance day of Haridas Thakur. And that's a beautiful, I won't go into the details, but just that's a beautiful lila that affirms what we are talking today. The body of Haridas Thakur, he passed away, but his quote-unquote material body became so infused with bhakti and his practice, that is no longer to be seen as a material body. It's totally sacred and spiritual. Mahaprabhu himself is taking that body, dancing with this body. He's excavating the tomb to put in the body. He's bathing the body. He's worshipping that spiritualized matter, if you want to use that expression. So that's a potential how to relate to matter in a fully sacred way. So in one sense that has to do with renunciation. We have to renounce seeing matter as profane, and we need to relearn, probably unlearn first, and relearn to honor matter, to honor all the aspects of this world, of nature. The main instruction of Mahaprabhu is related to nature. Look at the grass. He finds a guru. Look at the tree. He finds a guru. He's not saying this temporary, miserable material world, we have to leave this place as soon as possible. He's finding Guru Tattva in every direction. You go to the 24 gurus of the Bhagavatam, 24 gurus, 11th canto. Only 3 are human. Mostly all of them are quote unquote inanimate matter, insects, animals, wind, sun, moon. And the 3 humans are 1 baby, 1 little girl, and 1 prostitute. So there's a point there, right? Better you learn to learn from everyone and anyone. There's no Brahmin in that list, no Brajavasi, so to say, or just anyhow. So yeah, it's an invitation to reframe our relationship with everyone, with everything, and that implies some form of renunciation, right? Because in order to change my angle of vision, I have to renounce my previous angle of vision. I have to die to my previous way of saying things in order to see them anew, in order to honor reality in a new way. That's it. And with this, I'm concluding. I hope. I won't promise it, but I hope. That's the very meaning of the word respect. Mahaprabhu is speaking in his main instruction: honor everyone, amani namanad, respect. And sometimes we take respect as a more even formal, intimidating things. I was talking with devotees in Switzerland, I think, and they told me for them, culturally, the word respect entails something not very positive. Like you have to respect that person, or like. But the word respect comes from the Latin respectare. Spectare has to do with spectacles, to look. So respect means re means anew. So respect means to look anew. To learn to look things from a new angle. That means to respect. So if I'm to respect you, it means I'm trying to see you from another angle, and not to put you in a box. Oh yeah, I know already Gaur Govinda. He did this, and he put you in a box. I'm not respecting you. Even if you are a mess, to respect the person means even if you're a mess at present, you were a mess in the past. In future consideration, you have a beautiful potential. So I'm seeing you also according to your potential. Even if at present you are not there, but the soul has a beautiful potential. So that's a way of respecting everything. So anyhow, some thoughts that came today in connection to Mahaprabhu's Sannyasa-lila, renunciation, relating to this world, and how to do that all, hopefully, from a context of proper bhakti conception, understanding. So, yeah, everything can be seen as Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta will say, as potential paraphernalia to offer in service to Krishna. He gave the beautiful example. He said, this arctic plate we have, it has incense, lamp, all these ingredients. They represent earth, water, fire, either all this panchabhuta, this main element. So he says the whole world is made of those elements. So this arctic plate is like a symbol of the whole world. So we offer that plate to Krishna. We offer the whole world is like a big arctic plate. Every ingredient is there waiting for us to see it in connection to the divine, towards the depth. So have to be good pujaris. Being good pujari doesn't mean only, again, the altar is everywhere. Ultimately, the arti plate is everywhere. What to speak of the altar is everywhere. The arti plate is everywhere. So all this has to do with Mahaprabhu's Sannyasa-lila, actually. No, he had that vision, that practical vision, that practical engagement. That was represented by our acharyas. No? Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, he will be riding a car at his time, which was like heresy at the time. The sannyasi at that time was supposed to walk everywhere and anywhere barefoot. What to speak of wearing shoes, probably leather shoes. There was no ecological vegan leather shoes at the time. Riding a car, that's like, and they will come to him like why you Gaudiya Vaishnavas are riding cars, like implying everyone but you should be riding cars. And he reply, only us should be riding cars, like because we know how to engage everything in Krishna service. So he turned the question around. Like, why are you riding cars? I mean, only us should be riding cars. We have the right to do that. Of course, we shouldn't exploit that notion, but he was walking his stuff. So that was his Yukta Vairagya. Not rejecting anything, engaging everything in seva, and renouncing the self-centered separateness spirit of seeing things for my own thing. So, a few thoughts. Also, I'd like to hear yours if you have any comments or thoughts or questions, whatever you may like to share. Yes, no problem. Yes, please. Thanks for waiting till the end. Probably you had to leave before now, so thanks for waiting. Thanks for coming. See you.
So you said we need to change the angle of vision.
Mm.
And now that's that big question. How?
How?
What are the practical, like what how do we train to unlearn and learn new angle of vision? What are the methods? What do we do as that's we're supposed to do this by sadhana, right? So what is that element in sadhana that we have to be applying or particularly careful of that actually help us change the angle of vision?
Of course, for every case, there may be a different answer. I won't give just here is the universal formula, here it goes. I don't know, for example, just to give a practical example, some people may have realized, oh, I have neglected my body for decades in the name of detachment, or we're not this body. So a way of applying all this is I'll take care of my body. Ultimately, it's not my body, it's an instrument of service. So I will show some concern and affection to that. And some other person may feel, oh, in the name of being renounced and transcendental, I've been indifferent to my wife or to my kids. I have not been emotionally available to them. I've been quite absent because I thought that will mean whatever, to be entangled and fallen. So I'm realizing that now. So I will try to redeem somehow the situation and invest myself on a daily basis, whatever the case. Now, I'm for me as a sannyasi, of course, I don't have kids or wife, or I have a body, so I have to take care of my body. I'm taking care of I try to as much as I can. I have to, because with all the traveling I'm making, if not, I won't survive one single tour. So things like that, no? And even as we will be talking probably, I think tomorrow, the importance of remaining human, not the importance of humanity in our spiritual practice. No, we shouldn't practice spirituality at the cost of our humanity. So how to take care of my humanity in all its dimensions, even if some of you say, but that's material, that's temporary. So what? No, I have to take care of everything, because ultimately everything is Krishna's energy. So I'm a caretaker of everything in his service, right? And I would say, of course, if we realize I may have been hearing the exact opposite narrative to what we were talking today for eons, then I may just need to hear that on a daily basis to brainwash, so in the good sense of the term myself. So I may have to read or study or hear or talk with people that we can really make this a main topic of healing and conversation on a daily basis. I'm not telling people what to do, but when we realize I need to unlearn something, of course, there's some scars acquired and the tendencies will go in certain direction unless I incorporate new input on a daily basis. Because if not, again, we will go back to normal. So somehow to keep myself receiving that type of new input that I realize is showing me another perspective, and have hopefully some circle of sharing what these things can be talked openly, and we can have some healthy permission to relate to everything in a sacred way. Swajati, as we say yesterday, sadhu sangha has to be with like-minded people, and sometimes, of course, there are so many like-minded Gaudiya Vaishnavas that we can relate to. Sometimes, to be honest, there are some Gaudiya Vaishnavas I cannot relate to that much. Not because they are bad or anything, but just we are in different constellations, planetary systems. And sometimes I relate more with someone else who is not a Gaudiya Vaishnava, and it's okay. I don't have to push myself to, this is not correct, this is not supposed to happen. Just also accepting all those things. And but mostly for me it's about in my daily relationships, how do I express all the things, and how do I make peace with matter, my relationship with matter, try to connect with, I like a lot nature, and because for me nature is also, Krishna is very present there. It's very naturally possible to experience communion there. So again, for some people that may be more helpful, for some other people something else. But for me, walking in nature is kind of like going to a temple and participating in some sacred ceremony in its own way. It's a very interesting way of perceiving. And again, when Mahaprabhu is saying, be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, probably, I'm not comparing myself to that, but he's looking at nature and finding udipana, finding like stimulants, like, So, trying to keep some company and association that reminds us about these particular perspectives of how to see reality, how to relate to the world. Apart from the practical examples I shared in the beginning. So I hope that helps. Something else?
I had a question about the different aspects of the Sannyasa-lila. I heard once a while ago that there was also a curse spoken on the Bharati order, and that's why Mahaprabhu, he chose to accept the sannyas order from a Bharati.
So there was a curse
by Shankaracharya onto the Bharati order that they will rebel against the Guru, and then so just following that curse, actually Mahaprabhu complied with that and essentially also rebelled against the Guru, and that just remind me. And this in Bhakti Vinod Thakur's Jiva, Shankaracharya is also praised through the mouth of Babaji there. I wonder what is the position of the perspective, Gaudiya Vaishnava perspective on the position of Shankaracharya, as he composed Ashtakams and
Bhaja Govindam and so many others.
So, like, what is the position of Shankaracharya in this Gaudiya Vaishnava perspective?
Well, of course, we will have these verses, Mayavadam, Asatchastram, and other verses that describe Shankaracharya's Mahadev himself, Shiva, and Vaishnava Vaishnavanam Jatasambho, the Bhagavatam says Jiva is the highest of all Vaishnavas. So that's very paradoxical, because on one side we hear Gaudiya Vaishnavas kind of, how to say, smashing Advaita Vedanta with relishment almost. Like it's like, yeah. For particular reasons at some time, I personally don't feel that's the most convenient way of approaching the topic at the current times, in my opinion. But we know that there are some, of course, historical opposition, differences of opinion, but at the same time, Mahaprabhu himself, although he, of course, will refute the notion of Brahma Satyam Jagan Mityam, basically. That's very the opposite of what we're talking today. We're talking about the world is sacred and venerable, and this famous line from Sankara says the world actually does not exist. It's not real. The only real thing is Brahman. So that's very different from our perspective. We'll say the world is sacred, you can perceive God in it. He said the world is an illusion. It's not true. And by the way, you are not true either. The only true thing is Brahman. So that notion, of course, naturally Gaudiyas and Vaishnavas from other Sampradayas, actually Vaishnavas like Sri Vaishnavas, who arguably are even more intense, or Madhvacharya, what to speak, Dvaita. But at the same time, we have this point that, but Shankara is Mahadev, coming with a particular purpose, as we know, to preach something in particular, veiled Buddhism, as this mantra will say, to at least reestablish the position of the Vedas that Buddha put aside. And he's Shiva, and Shiva is the most venerable of all Vaishnavas. So that's a very interesting, like, full circle thing, because on one side we're saying all this Mayavad stuff is blah, 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 all this, and Mayavad is coming from Sankara, and Sankara is Shiva, and Shiva is the greatest of all Vaishnavas. So in one sense, our position towards Sankaracharya is not, let's say, the same position toward the teachings he gave with that particular purpose. So yeah, we worship Sankara in one sense because he's Mahadev, he's worshipable, he's again the greatest of all Vaishnavas from one perspective. Of course, from other perspective, the gopis are the greatest of all Vaishnavas. There are many ways of extolling the glories of different people, but but the teachings we understand. Not like we will say Buddha in our conception is one of the Das Avatar, is one of the divine descents of Vishnu, but we won't subscribe to the doctrine that proposes an Atma, like the soul does not exist, even, and so many other things. So we make those differences. Yeah, Buddha Ki Jai, we worship him, but we don't follow what he preaches, because basically that goes against Shastra. That's Jiva Goswami's point in the Sandarbhas. He said, if God does not follow Shastra, we won't worship him. That's an interesting point he made. No. Between God and Shastra, what's greatest authority? He says Shastra. So when God does not follow Shastra like he does with Buddha, who rejects Shastra altogether, we won't follow him. I mean, we understand who he is and the purpose, but so that's an interesting point. Speaking of the ultimacy of Shastra. So of course, yeah, we worship Shankara and all these devotional poems that he wrote, which there are a lot of them. We will see them in a particular light, connecting that with Mahadev and his devotional side. Of course, his followers will have another view. But yeah, ultimately Mahaprabhu's vision is generous in terms of seeing who he is. And even Jiva Goswami in his Sandarbhas, he quotes Shankaracharya many times in the Sandarbhas, not only to refute his doctrine. So that's also an interesting, like, very encompassing approach. In the Sandarbhas, Jiva Goswami quotes Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, at times to refute their points, but at times to substantiate his own points, so appreciating their contribution. And he does the same even with Shankaracharya. Sometimes he quotes Shankara said, and not refute him. So it's a way of acknowledging there is a contribution there also. So we also should be nuanced in our approach to these personalities, because if not, we are too black and white, and we may end up blaspheming unnecessarily, so to say. Yeah. Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada, the day I was reading, he will say, even if you find someone who comes from the Advaita Vedanta Sampradaya as a sannyasi, you should fall to the ground and offer pranam to them. There was for like, but Prabhupada, you say all the things. But he was kind of separating, like we say, we hate the sin, not the sinner, to put it in some way, right? So, yeah. Something else? Yes,
In our devotional pursuits, it's quite present the endeavor for purity, for selflessness, in order to create the space where we can actually become attracted and eventually do it out of spontaneous attraction, our devotional pursuit. So detachment on one side and renunciation almost stigmatized in your presentation, like the detachment.
And I'm a sannyasi. What's going on?
So, can you give us a little maybe positive perspective of the renunciation that entails purity?
Yeah, I don't recall at which time you came of my presentation, so what you get to hear or not. But also I was talking that, of course, we are not against renunciation. Our path is not renunciation. That's not in any of our bhakti angas described. But the renunciation that comes as a byproduct of bhakti, as a natural symptom, that's the renunciation we want. It's not renunciation as a path, as a means to a goal, but renunciation as a symptom of the practice we are following. I practice bhakti. By practicing bhakti, certain renunciation comes as a result of that. Like we were talking today in the morning about awe and wonder and surrender coming after that. So I wouldn't say, because we were saying, okay, we have to develop selflessness to become attracted. I will say we have to become attracted to develop selflessness. And in the sense of, as we were talking today, you have some experience of bhakti, that awe and wonder attracts you to give yourself more selflessly, gradually. It's not so much like, because bhakti is independent. I mean, bhakti doesn't come from any form of purity. We have many stories in the scriptures where bhakti comes in the life of people who are, what's purity also to begin with? Because we may understand that in moral terms, bodily purity codes, following certain whatever social, and in one sense, bhakti, how to say, bhakti is not impeded by that. Bhakti can come. Bhakti is independent. In the words of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur at the beginning of Madhurya Kadambini. With this, I'm not saying be as impure as you can. It doesn't matter. But I'm just saying I can be absolutely pure in terms of moral conduct, bodily, ritualistic observances, and that doesn't speak about bhakti being there. So that's a very important point. Like, for example, I was going to say something and it flew. Krishna's remembrance and forgetfulness. Yeah. Well, anyhow, I continue. I will come.
I mean, just
Yeah.
a side question.
Yeah.
We have we have also instructions or suggestions to live in a solitary place, which entails a certain level of detachment from or renunciation of the ambient where we are, or dedicate as much time to spiritual practices as you can. Create that space where actually you can take in the presence of God, and so it's kind of like it seems that the both are a little more parallel than one after another, or that, yeah, we have.
Yeah, my point with this is like whatever I renounced during my practice of bhakti, I'm renouncing it because that's favorable for bhakti.
Oh.
So in that sense, it's like always in the service of bhakti. Whatever I'm renouncing, whatever I'm taking a distance from, it's not for its own sake. No, it's not that it's about renouncing that. It's about taking distance from that. It's because by doing so, that will help me
Create more time, space, attention, or
whatever. So it's all like in the service of bhakti. No? So in that sense, I'm not saying so much like renunciation by its own sake, but it's just like an arrangements or considerations that I have to be better. In my particular situation, I may be better positioned in bhakti, but my point is that bhakti is independent of those things, in the sense of if I'm open, bhakti can come at any moment and any situations. We're talking today, I may need to make some adjustments in my daily life. As we were talking today, I may need to craft a sacred space to realize that every space is sacred. Right, but every space is already sacred. So, but I need to do that myself.
See, it's too close.
Yeah. So I need to do that by my own stage. But that's the sacredness is always there. And in other words, also bhakti is always there. Like when Krishna says in the Gita, that's what I wanted to remember. This famous definition of sadhu. We were talking about that yesterday, but I didn't go there. When you hear the word sadhu, how do you translate sadhu in English? One word. Saint. Okay. So, and what do you think by saint? That sounds like pretty high caliber person, right? Here comes a saint. In Christianity, a saint is like, okay, has been officially canonized. Okay, yeah, that's also part of the implication. So, and I'm okay, I'm not saying that a saint is not a sadhu, but I'm saying a sadhu can also be someone who is not because by saint we also feel perfect character, totally moral, pure, all these notions, purity, and so on. Saint, sadhu. What's the main definition of saint in the Bhagavad Gita? Krishna uses the word sadhu 3 times. What's the most famous verse when he speaks about who is a sadhu for him? Chapter 9. That's my hint. Maybe the most controversial verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Second hint. Thank you. Api chetsaduracharo bhajante mamananyabhak sadhureva samantavya samyapya vyasita hisaha. How does that verse speak? It starts. If we think, okay, sadhu is someone very pure, very saintly, perfect conduct, Krishna says, api chetsaduracharo. Sudurachara means very bad behavior. Achar means good behavior. Durachar means bad behavior. Sudurachar means terribly bad behavior. And Krishna says, even if apichet, someone has terribly bad behavior, but bhajante mamananya bhak is dedicated to worship me exclusively, or at least has that ideal, even if still you are a mess, but you have that ideal, sadhureva samantave. I consider that person a sadhu. That's my opinion, Krishna said. You cannot argue with that. No? Krishna invite you for a debate tomorrow, 4 p.m. I will show you that's not correct. You should remove that verse from the Gita. No. So Krishna is saying you may not have that much purity yet. You may, in terms of how we understand purity sometimes. You may be a mess, you may be quite imperfect, and so all that stuff. But if you are honest about your dedication to me, in my eyes, you're already a sadhu. And it's only a matter of time that we'll attain whatever you need to attain. But you're already a sadhu in my consideration. That's very, of course, that's not to take light and relax. Okay, so Krishna already considers me a sadhu. But just to feel hope and be humbled by the generosity of how Bhagavan looks at us and the power of bhakti also. If I'm sincere about my pursuit in bhakti, even if I'm devoid of so much purity and stuff, that sincerity is what warrants everything else. No? So just to make that point, because sometimes devotees may feel, first I need to be perfect in all these departments, and then comes whatever. And it's not like that. Krishna is saying you can be still a mess, and in my eyes you're a sadhu, as long as you are sincere. And that's not a cheap line either. No, because, no, I'm already sincere, of course. I don't know. You have to be sincere about how sincere we are, right?
What is the word that he uses in the verse for sincere?
He doesn't use sincere. I'm just using. He said, if you're dedicated exclusively to me, and then he says, "Bodhayo abhyavasainam." Your intelligence is properly determined in the right direction. I want to serve you, which of course entails some sincerity. I'm just extracting that implication there. And the word sadhu, I mean, I'm taking sincerity, if you will, from sadhu. Sadhu come from satam, from sat. Srila Prabhupada translates satam in the Bhagavatam as utterly honest person. So sadhu comes from sat. Sat means also truth. So sadhu means someone who is honest. That's a way of translating sadhu, an honest person. And as I like to say, sangha can mean association, but sangha also can mean, in the Gita, how the word is used, attachment. Sangha. So sadhu sangha can mean attachment to being honest. Yeah, it's association with devotees. For what? So we get attached each other to be honest with one another. If that's not happening, I'm not so sure if that's sadhu sangha, with all respect. Because the implication of sadhu, sat sangha, contact with the truth, contact with reality. Anyhow, that's a whole other conversation, but it's an important point. So we don't take these terms for granted. Yeah, sadhu sangha, see you Friday, sadhu sangha. Pizza, right? Okay, sadhu sangha. Movie, popcorn, okay, sadhu sangha. Right. And it's okay with all of that. I'm not stigmatizing any of that either. But as long as you're honest, bring the pizza, no problem. Just come from Italy, and there was a lot of that.
This talk reminded me of Hari Parshat, and he says there are for Bhakti there are no rules because it's independent. So for chanting there are no rules. There are only recommendations, and our problem is in mixing the two. We think that the recommendations are rules, and this is not like that.
Yeah. In one sense, Bhakti is very liberal. Let's put it that way. And I know that can be dangerous because in the beginning we need rules and we need like, okay, give me the formula and how. And if it's like, oh, it's very liberal, Bhakti is independent, just be honest. And it's like, give me rules. So there's space for that. So give me the formula. But at one point, the formula is not enough. The formula is no longer the formula. I need another formula. And it's okay. It's okay that, but it's important that when we reach that point, we receive what we need at that stage, and not just a reinforcing of the formula. Like, I don't know. I've heard about sometimes following the formula, which I have nothing against that. I don't know, chant the 16 rounds, follow the 4 regs. That's the formula. But at one point, we need to unpack what does it mean to do that, as we were talking yesterday. What does it mean to chant? It's a whole lifestyle, not just what I do while I'm chanting. Was to no meat eating, we were talking before. It's not just no meat eating, it's be as compassionate as you can. We need like to unpack the implications. And even sometimes I may have some particular situation in my life I need to solve, and the solution is not just, I'll continue chanting. I have this problem, chant double round. The problem is still there, chant quadruple now. You follow my point? It's not just reinforcing the formula in a bigger quantity, but entering into the nuance of the specifics of the personal situation. Again, we are personalists. So we have to address each case in its unique light. Yeah. Yes, Keshav Priya.
I don't know whether I'll be able to express it properly, but when we come from Western backgrounds with academic and atheistic backgrounds, and you're talking about a personal God and a personal relationship and personal way of associating with devotees. I think it's always easier to just follow prescribed duties and practice all the higher levels, like the things you've talked about. But how, if even after chanting Hare Krishna for 30 years, after trying to follow the process or whatever it is, you're still empty-handed because there is no conception about the personal idea of a God or even the existence of a God. How, if you're not born with such things or in such communities that have the vision to serve and to see everything related to God, then how to cultivate this attitude of dependence on God, or a personal, on top of it, not only a force, but not the Advaita Vedanta concept, but a personal God.
I have to go.
Yes, please.
So,
Yeah. We already extended, but we are closing a few minutes. But yeah, please.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming.
Yes, very much. Thank you very much. I understood you very good, so well, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Yes,
I
yeah.
appreciate your presence also. Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Just some prasada we can carry with you. This is veganic. S'il vous plaît.
Thank you very much.
We will see each other.
Thank you. So we'll share some thoughts regarding your question. Maybe then we conclude so it doesn't become too late for anyone. So, well, again, each case is different. Situation is unique. But if we haven't had an environment of that, an experience of that, we come with, as you say, a secular, maybe materialistic background. Bhakti comes from sadhu sangha, so the connection with the personal God, with a personal approach to a personal God, comes from those who are person themselves and who are living their life from that place. So we need to have that somehow or other, that connection, whether it is personally by connecting the life of someone, the message of someone, and we need to receive those samskars, and we need to replace, so to say, if that's the word, whatever samskars or impressions we've received from time without beginning, and receive bhakti samskars, devotional impression that start to give us a new framework of reality, a new way of relating to God, to myself, to others, because we can be pretty impersonal in all possible directions, not only just like there's only Brahman, but I can relate to myself very poorly and impersonally. I can relate to all of you, not as all that you are. So that's somehow impersonal on some level. I'm not treating you as much of a person as you are. So yeah, I will say we did that point of reference to begin with. If we didn't receive that, at least in this lifetime, or maybe in others as well, we may not even imagine that such a thing is possible. So we are just living our lives with whatever experiences we have so far. And if worshiping a personal God, loving everyone personally, has not been in our picture, we need to be encountered with the pratyaksha, with the first-hand experience of, okay, there is this thing we call radical personalism, where the whole of reality is seen in personal terms, right? So we need to have a connection with someone which is hopefully as impactful as possible, that it invites all our previous preconceptions and assumptions to be reevaluated. Like it's possible. I think many of us can give testimony of that, meeting people, knowing about people, whether again it has been in 3D, knowing about their life, reading their books, but their own life example speaks for itself so much that invites us to reevaluate our whole orientation to life. and gives us like this new perspective of, okay, this is all that you can be. This is all your potential, and this is the way of relating to God in a personal way. Because again, still, even if we don't, as I think Radhanath Swami said once also, he said, oh, it's relatively easy to dismiss God in the sense of, okay, I don't see him, he doesn't exist probably, so to say, being simplistic. But it's way more difficult to dismiss love of God in the sense that appears personified as a particular person. It's like in your face. So what to do with that? I mean, I had some experience, it's undeniable. What to do? I continue my life as if that didn't happen, or I open myself to the possibilities of going deeper in that direction. Of course, that's our choice. And many times still in our choices, we are fearful. Many times in our choices, we don't venture into these directions because of previous, whatever, presuppositions, biases, fears, attachment to certain sense of self-identity. Because also connecting with deep people, let's put it that way, is shattering of certain how to say, narratives we have entertained so far. Even in the concept of sadhu sangha, sometimes we had some sadhu sangha, and suddenly you meet someone who is very much like even challenging your own understanding of Krishna consciousness for good. But that's challenging. But you may need the challenge, but still it feels threatening to some part of us, because there's a part of us that will have to die. And it needs to die when being confronted by that deeper perspective, new depth. And that's what we are invited to. Okay, how sincere we are on the journey, how much I'm committed to transform on the journey, to change, to go deeper. As we were talking with Bhakti Rasa the other day, how much do I want to be a pilgrim on the Bhakti journey, or how much do I want to be a tourist on the Bhakti journey? That's a question I have to ask on a daily basis, basically. I'm being a pilgrim or a tourist here, right? Sometimes the answer is mixed. No, there is some pilgrimage, but there's also some Loy Bazaar stuff going on. Don't take Loy Bazaar out of me, please. A few selfies, a few Loy Bazaar, and then we go for parikram. So it's okay, it's part of the journey. But I think it's good to always be asking that, how can I increase my pilgrimagehood in the journey, and decrease gradually the tourist part of it, and become more serious and more committed in a natural way. Again, not like a fourth thing, I know I should be more committed, and it's all about guilt and toxic shame, and the motivation is all negative. I'm not saying that, but just we know in principle, yes, there is so much to be committed about here in a beautiful way, again, out of awe and wonder. So how do I put myself in those situations that I can naturally be drawn to that? We're talking today after lunch about that. Like, for example, we're saying that surrender, saranagati, this important word for us, shouldn't be out of pressure, shouldn't be out of fear, shouldn't be out of calculation, trying to fit in with the social circle. Surrender should be out of awe and wonder. I experience something that fills me with awe and wonder, and I cannot but surrender to that. It's irresistible. That's how it should happen, ideally. That's how we should be drawn to give ourselves more and more to personal God, to all the things we're asking about, but being confronted with experiences that are undeniably filled with awe and wonder. And I cannot, but I want to give my life to that, passionately. So we have also to be creative enough to craft those spaces and to look for those association or moments where we know we will be sent in that direction, and we will be given the choice to, okay, you want to increase your pilgrimage or your tourist side, and we can choose, hopefully wisely. And if we don't, we will have another chance to choose again. So yeah, that's what it came now. I hope I understood somehow the question. I hope that helps. And yeah, we're almost 2 hours, so I will stop here. And of course, if you have time and willingness, grateful and happy to be sharing with you these days till Sunday, including. We have invaded Dina Dayala Anupam's house for a few days, so sorry for that. Thank you for that. Sorry for that.
You are just a tourist here, it's okay.
Okay. I don't know if that was how to take
We'll
that.
discuss tomorrow.
Yeah. Give me a whole night to reflect it. I won't sleep this night thinking about that.
We
See you
need some
tomorrow.
prasadam, so
Sannyasa-lila Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sadhu Sangha ki jai, Gaur Premanand.
who is